What purports to be a breakthrough film about dreams turned out to be a first-rate, high-budget snooze fest.
Oh, really?
I kind of agree.
Whoa! Oh, we're gonna be spicy today.
Leo DiCaprio's character is insipid. Elliot Page's character is 2 sentences short of a paragraph. I couldn't care less if anyone lived or died.
I also agree with
I
this.
actually kind of agree with that one. Yeah.
2 clenched fists for this one. Methinks now I'll just go and watch Green Lantern and do myself in.
Oh, no. No, this movie ain't that bad.
Wow.
That was a 1-star review from IMDb.
Wow, that fell off a cliff fast.
Hello and welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I'm Ryan, joined as always by Andrew.
Hello.
And Steven.
Hi.
And in today's episode, we're talking about Christopher Nolan's science fiction dream movie, Inception.
Thriller.
Yeah,
Thriller?
Thriller? Is it a
Thriller?
thriller?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh, Andrew's here to be spicy.
I'm not a big fan of this film.
It's one of my favorite films, so this is going to be a very fun episode.
Fight.
But before we get into our thoughts on Inception and how good of a movie it is, we're going to talk about other modern sci-fi that we like. So, like, more recent films, nothing older.
We're not gonna break out like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah. So, like, in the modern era, what
Yeah.
are some our favorite science fiction films? Andrew, why don't you lead us off?
Sure. I chose the 2014 sci-fi action film Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt,
Very good.
directed by Doug Liman. And
Andrew is
It was
here.
also on my short list. Thanks for this.
Andrew is here to be a Tom Cruise stan.
Okay, I love Tom Cruise, but this is honestly just a fantastic film.
It's very good. Emily Blunt's fantastic in this
Yeah,
movie.
so this, the whole synopsis, let me pull it up for you,
Mhm.
is, please hold, a soldier fighting aliens gets to relive the same day over and over and over and over again. The day restarts every time he dies.
Yeah.
So this is just Groundhog Day, but action films.
Yeah.
And it's...
Oh, it is.
It's definitely, but so the thing that I like about this is every time he dies, he learns something new.
Mhm.
And
He gets to keep some knowledge.
yeah, and you get to see him basically like figuring out how to kind of like work his way through just dying. Because essentially, Tom Cruise's character at the beginning of the film is not combat ready. He is basically just a mook that gets thrown into
They're
it.
just throwing bodies at the problem at that point.
Because the aliens are invading Earth, and they basically have this ability to kind of see a little bit further into the future, and that's kind of how they can take over all these other worlds. And basically have a perfect invasion. And then essentially accident happens and he gets the ability to do that. And then he can basically kind of fix, the timeline.
He has the chance to kind of go back and redo and
Yeah. And the thing that's really cool about this film is, one, it's just really good action sci-fi, and Emily Blunt's fantastic in it. Tom Cruise is kind of like prime, just because he wasn't a producer in this or anything like that.
Yeah.
He was just a dude, just an actor in the film, and it's just fun getting to see him just kind of just flounder a little bit.
Yeah.
Compared to like the Mission movies or Top Gun or whatever.
Where he's always on top of things.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think this movie is, and it may have changed since it released, but criminally underseen.
It is. So whenever it came out, they had no idea how to promote
market
this
it.
film at all, because it's based on a visual novel.
It's actually a full novel. I've read it. It's called All You Need Is Kill.
Yeah.
I can't remember the author's name off the top of my head, but it's a Japanese book. And so I bought the book when they showed the first trailer for this movie, because I was like, I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
And I read it. And I would go as far as to say this is one of the few times where the movie is better than the book, because they took all the really cool elements from the book and they fleshed out basically the aliens a little better. Like the way they're described in the book is like they're just like a bunch of toads.
Yeah.
Like a toad-like creature.
Battletoads?
Kind of. And you're trying to kind of like picture them, and it's kind of difficult. And so when they did the movie, they did a better job with that. But they also like kind of truncated Emily Blunt's character's arc a little bit, because in the book, it goes in a few different places that I think they cut out, and that it's fine.
And it made it for the better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good film. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend watching it if you like, sci-fi actions.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a lot of fun. It's also a movie I'd love to review at some point.
Yeah.
Just, whenever we get to it.
Speaking of like the marketing issues it had too, like when I bought it on Blu-ray, like the cover of it just says "Live, Die, Repeat."
Yeah.
And then tiny words, "Edge of Tomorrow."
Yeah.
And I was like, what? like
that's
just
feels
commit
like
to the name.
You should flip these around.
Yeah, it's like they really didn't know how to market this.
No
this
idea
movie.
at all.
It's fun. Jordan Vogt Roberts, who's a director he did Kong Skull Island and a couple other movies. He has been tapped to the Metal Gear Solid movie, and he's been working.
Boy, they're not going to know how to market that either.
Well, he's been working really closely with Hideo Kojima and Konami and stuff and all that stuff. And so he was asked in an interview, "What's your favorite video game movie?" And he said, "Edge of Tomorrow."
Yeah.
And they were like, "That's not based on a video game." He's like, "No, but like think about it. Like
it
you
feels
die,
like a video game.
You get back in, you learn a little more,
Yep.
you keep going." He's like, so to him, he's like, that's a perfect example of what a video game movie should have been. Is it like this idea that you're
it's
maybe
great.
not every movie, but that one specifically feels very much like a video game.
If you're playing through a shooter like a Halo in the campaign, and you hit checkpoints, and then you die, and you come back to the checkpoint, you get a chance to be like, the sniper was on this hill, I need to take a better corner or whatever.
Yeah. And so it has that kind of a feel to me when I watch Edge of Tomorrow. And I saw it when it came out in theaters, and I bought it, and I watched it right after I bought it, and I haven't watched it in years.
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Yeah. But I remember liking it.
Yeah.
Steven, what about you?
Well, I was going to say, just to stick to that idea of not understanding marketing, right? We talked with one of our friends on his podcast, Ryan.
Yep.
And he kind of brought up, because he's out in California, he's in the industry, has been in the industry, and he brought up the idea of, well, every day when shooting is done, there's raw material given to marketing, so they can build up a marketing profile as it's being shot. So it does make you wonder, because it's not like films are shot guaranteed to be sequentially, right?
Yeah. No, yeah.
So especially for a subject like Edge of Tomorrow, where it's like it's repeating and he's getting better at it, the marketing department's just like, what is going on in this?
Is this before or after the clip we got yesterday?
Didn't we just get this clip yesterday? Or, so it's almost like they're having a deja vu trick played on them too.
They probably are, yeah.
So
probably.
I think once you kind of get some weird, or I don't want to say esoteric, but different material like that, where it's not obvious without having the whole film in front of you what's going on, you probably sabotage your own marketing department by being just different, you know?
because it's like it's a higher concept than what like baseline like action films and stuff are kind of set as, and then you have to figure out a way to tell people, hey, this is a little bit different, but it's still kind of just an action film,
right?
But you just got to get past the concept of like, hey, this guy can die and it's just Groundhog Day,
right? I wonder if they couldn't get the rights to say Groundhog Day, but with action, probably in the trailer or something.
Not,
because I feel like that's the easy way to describe it to anybody. But whatever. All right, Steven, what's your movie?
So my movie is 2009's Moon.
Oh, good movie.
Moon.
Love that one.
I don't even know what this one is.
All right.
What? You've never seen Moon?
No. I just said I don't know what this is.
Very good.
It's very good. So astronaut Sam Bell, played by Sam Rockwell.
The Sam Rockwell,
Andrew.
Rockwell. The Sam Rockwell.
Is nearing the end of his 3-year contract of harvesting helium-3, a precious energy source from the far side of the moon.
Okay.
Says his only communication with Earth is through the use of pre-recorded messages, and his only assistant, a computer named Gertie, voiced by Kevin Spacey. That didn't age quite as well as it could have, but isolation begins to take an alarming toll on his mind mere weeks before he is to return home. This sets into motion a series of events which reveals the terrible truth behind his mission.
Yeah.
So this is, again, we're talking about kind of like, I don't want to say high concept, but kind of different. It has a big twist. And I remember seeing the trailer or marketing for this, and I was really confused about what was supposed to be going on, because what starts to unravel for him is pretty confusing until you actually hit that moment. I can't give it away without just reading the movie. But it's really fun because, again, it's just Sam Rockwell.
I was gonna say it's a very person alone in one place. Sam Rockwell,
it's like The Martian.
Yeah,
very similar.
Yeah, very, because again, it's a harsh environment. He can't just go outside for a break. He's in these 3 rooms over and over and over again, and he has a computer little robot that cuts his hair for him and helps him with stuff.
Can do basics, but it's not like a companion he can talk to.
Yeah. So it's a fun sci-fi. It's the kind of sci-fi where it's in the realm of kind of a hard sci-fi ish.
Yeah.
Or very it's not, far future, or there's not magical things that work or happen. So it has kind of the same feeling of an alien or these kinds of things where it feels practical.
It feels very similar to The Martian. And I'm glad I saw this before I saw The Martian, because The Martian feels Martian's based off a book, obviously, but the Moon, when I saw it when did it come out? 2016, 2017?
2009.
2009?
I said at the start of the second.
Okay, so I watched it, though.
James, way to listen.
Well, I watched it in the 20 whatever's when
Yeah.
it hit Netflix is when I saw it.
Mhm.
So it came out in 2009, and I remember being interested in it,
Yeah.
but not seeing it because it's directed by Duncan Jones,
It
which
is.
is David Bowie's son, by the way.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
very
I didn't
cool.
know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
David Bowie's son. And so I remember being interested, and I like Sam Rockwell, but I
Yeah.
didn't see it till maybe I saw it in like 2013, but it was like,
Mhm.
into the 2010s at that point.
Oh,
And,
he directed the Warcraft movie in 2016.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's not a
good.
not
I
a great
mean,
accolade there.
I feel like that movie's issues weren't him, though. They were probably like.
It's 100% Blizzard.
Right.
Well,
so,
yeah, of course.
in his credit, like a lot of the orc scenes were good in that movie. But anyways, yeah, I remember the first time I saw Moon, like, because it is one of those movies that the less you know about it going in, the better.
The better, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And not knowing a whole lot about it, other than just Duncan Jones directed it, and it's got Sam Rockwell in it. And like, I was blown away. I loved it.
Okay.
It is one of those movies that, wow, I'm dancing around what I can say.
Yeah,
here.
of course.
Well, so
It's probably not a movie you could rewatch a bunch of times.
yeah,
Because
it hinges on. It's kind of like an M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
kinda-
Oh,
it has,
so
it has a
it
twist.
hinges on a Christopher Nolan film where there's a twist, and then the twist isn't that good.
no.
No, the twist in this is good.
Yeah, it's just once you know it, you
Well,
watch
no,
it a second time, you
That,
catch.
that was a knock at Christopher Nolan, not at
I-
Moon.
yeah, we're here.
but
we're
there's
here
not
usually
really a
to
lot of
bash
twists
on
in Christopher
Ryan, I
Nolan
know.
movies, so it's kind of off base, but cool. It's just one of those that like I think you can watch it twice solidly easy because the first time you don't know what's going on,
And then the second time you can.
the second
Ooh.
time you can kind of pick up
You
on
can
stuff.
catch new stuff, and then after that, there's not. It's also pretty short. It's only an hour 37 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Pretty
It's
good,
a
yeah.
quick
It
watch.
is rated R, so that is something
Yeah.
to keep in mind going into it.
But it's a perfect example to me of like a lower ish budget sci-fi
Yeah,
where
I
like
mean, the budget on this did not. I don't think the budget on this was very high at
no,
all.
because again, it's one dude in like basically one set for like 90% of the movie, but like
Yeah.
they do so much with that little
Mhm.
amount that it makes you like upset at other movies that have
Huge budget.
Huge
so-
budget,
So,
like-
the budget for this is $5 million,
Oh
Right.
my gosh.
that's what I'm saying,
right?
Like,
For a 2009 film that is a sci-fi,
yeah, but
and there's not like a moment where you're like, "Ooh, that's bad CGI"
No,
or something
yeah.
like that. There's none of those. It's
Oh,
just
wow.
it's
It's
such
just
a small cast, small setting.
they made a practical set that looks great and they shot most everything
Yeah.
right
Mhm.
there. You know what I
Wow.
mean? And like so I don't know, like what was that movie with Jennifer Lawrence and
Chris Pratt?
Chris Pratt, Passengers?
Passengers?
Oh, the interstellar travel cruise.
Yeah,
ship
that
thing?
was like
yeah.
high budget, lots of two
Yeah.
big actors, and just I didn't care for that movie. It was fine, but it was
Yeah.
like, and
It existed.
Moon is a perfect example of like they took $5 million in Sam Rockwell and built one set and made just a killer film.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like it on that aspect. Yeah.
I think it's a great film. I haven't just kind of stumbled across it. I think on Netflix. I
Yeah.
don't know, 2012 or something like that. It was just
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, well, this concept's kind of cool. Let's fire it. And it was like, whoa. Once it started going,
yeah, it's definitely worth a watch if you like any kind of sci-fi and space stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. Ryan?
Speaking of, mine is 2016's Arrival.
Ooh, yeah.
This
From
is
director-
a favorite of Andrew.
Denis Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve.
With Amy Adams.
However you say it. Yeah, Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner. The synopsis for this one is a linguist works with the military to communicate with alien life forms after 12 mysterious spacecraft appear around the world.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this was the first Denis Villeneuve film I'd seen.
Probably.
I
trying to
don't think
think.
it's his first film,
It's
but
not,
No,
it's
no.
not his first, but
No, it's the first one
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
seeing, and I was just struck by his
visual
just the
storytelling.
style. Yeah,
Yeah.
because everything he does has a very
It's a very deliberately shot
Well,
film.
it's alien, but it's realistic.
Yeah.
Like it's not so far fetched that it like
It's not like you're watching the Prometheus films.
no, it looks like something that could conceivably exist, and that carried over into
Yeah.
like Dune and
And
other
Blade
stuff.
Runner.
Blade Runner.
2049, yeah.
Yeah, he has a really good like attention to detail on sets and just the design of everything in that
Yeah.
movie. And I think Amy Adams just kills it in that
She does.
movie.
That's
Um,
probably one of my favorite roles for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm not the hugest Amy Adams fan. Like I think she's pretty good.
Yeah.
There's some roles I've seen her in where I'm like, I feel like you were miscast. Like I didn't think she was a good Lois Lane in like the Man of Steel.
I don't know. I thought she was pretty good.
I didn't like her at all in it.
Oh,
It was-
interesting.
She was not Lois Lane to me. She was a different character.
That's fair.
and that to me as a Superman fan, I was like, why? Like, there's a lot of other things going on in
Yeah.
that movie too.
yeah.
So, but that was just my minor thing with her was like, man, I like her as an actress generally, but like, I didn't feel like she fit that role. This role, I was like, this was written for Amy Adams.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't
I
picture
think so too.
anybody else in this situation. Yeah, I just loved that movie when it came out. Did you? What did you think about it when it came
I
out?
loved it.
Yeah.
The music's fantastic. The cinematography's really good, and this definitely feels like a very grounded way of how it would actually be whenever, like, if you have like this benevolent kind of alien species,
Yeah.
show up on Earth, and how we would try and interact with them.
It's just how do you cross that gap, right?
Yeah. And it's really cool, and obviously we can't say it because spoilers, but the twist of the film is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, probably one of the best. Where, like, you're kind of watching it, you're like, yeah. You get some really good stuff in there.
It also does a good thing to me, and I don't think this is getting too spoilery, but it definitely is like, it deals with the idea of communicating with a life form that is so alien and so different from us. That, like, how do you even start? So, like, an idea of, like, a minute in Earth time, what if that was, like, a second to an alien?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because where they're from, their planet rotates around the sun a lot slower.
Yeah.
Whatever. Or what if a day of our life is, like,
400 years.
400 years of their life? Or what, like, just the time dilation that can happen just between species from opposite ends of the galaxy, to where it's, like, you can't just talk to them because to them you sound like or super fast or whatever. Yeah, like, and so that idea is never addressed in Hollywood normally. It's usually the aliens are humanoid, they have arms and legs, and you can talk to them and they can talk back, or like everything is relatively on the same
where this
ballpark.
is very what you would kind of expect out of like an alien species that is truly alien.
Alien.
In every aspect.
Not Star Trek alien in the sense that they're a bipedal humanoid with a ridge on their forehead or whatever. Yeah.
Have you seen it, Steven? No. Okay.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
Yeah. No. Definitely worth the watch.
I've seen like a few bits from it, and obviously I've heard you talk about it, other people talk about it. I've never just sat down like, I'm gonna watch The Arrival today,
Yeah. Oh, it's a mood.
It's a mood. Yeah.
That's fair.
But again, if you like the stylings of Dune in some ways.
Well, that's the thing is Denis movies aren't something where you just like, oh, you know what? I feel like today, let's just pop in, Blade Runner 2049. You don't just throw it on to watch for Friday night, you know?
Yeah, it's a very deliberate film.
I mean, he's a French filmmaker, so there's going to be feelings.
Emotions, maybe some cigarettes, I don't know.
Give a cigarette to baby. All right.
Our one listener in France, very angry about that one.
All three of the movies we brought up, if you haven't seen them, you should check them out. Those are
all good. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Inception. Let's start with a plot summary. Dom Cobb is a skilled thief, the absolute best in the dangerous art of extraction, stealing valuable secrets from deep within the subconscious during the dream state, when the mind is at its most vulnerable. Cobb's ability has made him a coveted player in the treacherous new world of corporate espionage, but it's also made him an international fugitive and cost him everything he has ever loved. Now Cobb is being offered a chance at redemption. One last job could give him his life back, but only if he can accomplish the impossible, Inception. Instead of the perfect heist, Cobb and his team of specialists have to pull off the reverse. Their task is not to steal an idea, but to plant one. If they succeed, it could be the perfect crime, but no amount of careful planning or expertise can prepare the team for the dangerous enemy that seems to predict their every move, an enemy that only Cobb could have seen coming. Inception came out in 2010. It was directed and written by Christopher Nolan, stars Leo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ken Watanabe, Elliot Page, Marion Cotillard, Cillian Murphy, and others. Music, obviously, by Hans Zimmer. That's a huge part of this film, I think. The budget was $160 million, and the box office was over $825 million, with about 292 of that being domestic. So it was a pretty big box office success, which is important because I feel like at this time, especially in Hollywood, right around 2010, we were starting to get into that gear of like, we can only do sequels or adaptations, right? And so he did The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And it was like, this was a huge success. So he's like, now you're going to let me do Inception.
Yep.
Because they would not let him do it before Dark Knight. Like he had tried to pitch it, I think, to Warner Brothers and Legendary.
He pitched it back in like 2002. Yeah.
And then I think the same could probably be said for like Interstellar later. Is that like if Inception hadn't been such a success and he hadn't been able to go into then the third Batman movie and then stuff, I don't think we would have gotten Interstellar. Probably could have gotten Dunkirk because that's like a
Dunkirk's pretty
a war movie.
Bet,
yeah, that's pretty safe.
But I do feel like there was this moment in Hollywood right around here that was kind of like an inflection point that this Christopher Nolan in this movie probably helped keep things from being just completely pigeonholed, and it still kind of is that way where it has to be a sequel or a superhero movie now.
Yeah. I'll give him credit for this one. I was just kind of looking through some trivia just to see. So he was approached by Warner Brothers about making it in 3D.
Yeah.
And he absolutely shut the idea down, saying it would distract from the storytelling just to put that in. And you know what? I can appreciate that.
Well, 'cause, I mean, 3D was very, very hyped
It
back
was
then.
super
It was
hot
the
right then,
2009
yeah.
Avatar.
Yeah,
it's a big deal. Make that money.
And so I think Christopher Nolan, love him or hate him, he is a bit pretentious at times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Understatement.
He is very, like, to his credit, I think, a very particular person when it comes to formats and things. Like, he has not adopted Dolby Atmos. He likes 5.1 surround sound. Deal with it.
Well,
interesting. That's an interesting approach.
Because we mentioned Denis Villeneuve earlier, like very similar kind of styles of cinematography and just, I think, mentality when they come out of film.
Yeah.
Now, one thing, again, because we're going to kind of just talk about this in general, is despite kind of the surreal nature of this film and when it was shot, made, etc., most of the effects are practical.
Yeah, that's another thing I was going to say. For me, and the reason I think I like this movie so much and I appreciate Christopher Nolan so much is he has just like the thing with, I'm not going to do 3D and I'm just going to do 5.1, surround sound. It's like he has a very specific vision for stuff. And a lot of times it is, we need to do as much as we can in the camera and not rely on special effects, where I think there's so many directors and so many studios.
Just fix it in post.
That just fix it in post.
Yeah.
Or they do scenes that, again, are unnecessarily CG. And that's where, when we get into talking about spectacle with some movies, you get into that section of like,
well, this is a CGI fest.
This would have been good if, X, Y, Z, and
it just doesn't feel realistic or right.
There is CG in this movie, but it's very sparingly used. And like, a lot of the stuff like the hallway scene, a lot of people think, and we're skipping ahead a little bit, but this isn't a spoiler, like the hallway scene, a lot of people think is CG, and it's like, no, they just did some wire removal.
They just did some crazy stuff.
They built these crazy sets, which we'll get into that in a minute. But like, I think for me, Christopher Nolan, again, love him or hate him, he has a very specific way of approaching movies that I respect, that he doesn't get pressured into making it 3D, but just because that's the fad, or he doesn't get pressured into doing a format he doesn't like. And he loves IMAX, speaking of formats.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because it's like, for him, it's just a very big film piece, so he gets more information to work with.
It's more real estate.
Yeah, more real estate. And because of that, I mean, it is the superior format for film. Like, like it's really big.
Yeah, no, it's killer. I saw The Dark Knight in IMAX, and it switches, between the dialogue scenes are like, normal, like 2.35, I think, aspect ratio, and to like when they do like the city shots or like the heist, everything's, huge. And it's like, I wish I'd seen Inception in IMAX. I didn't get a chance to see it back then because I didn't have an IMAX theater near me when it came out. All right, well, let's move into overall thoughts. Andrew, since you don't like the movie, why don't you start off?
Okay, hold on.
Put him on the spot. Let's go.
Well, I'm gonna say, like, it's not that I dislike the film. Like, I will absolutely watch this movie. It's very visually pretty, and there are some action scenes that are very cool, and I like the concept of the film. However, I think it's just really boring.
Okay.
And there's a whole lot of dialogue that just exists, which is fine. It's just a lot of technobabble that just happens throughout the film.
It is pretty slow.
Yeah.
Despite not really being what I would call a long movie. It's not 3 hours. It's 2 hours, 28 minutes, which is deliberate. But it does feel very slow paced.
But the biggest drawback for me, outside of just being it's just a lot of exposition, is the action scenes that happen are really not that good.
No, they're not.
Like, I just there's
there's a lot to like about the film.
My ulcer is flaring up.
Like, there absolutely is some really good, like, so the scene in the hotel, like whenever he's like the hallway scene, that's great. Like, that's totally fine. The stuff for me that really pulls it out is like when they're kind of like in the snow.
The final act.
Yeah, like the final like level that they're in, where it's just like they're just like it's just really boring.
Okay.
So I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna spring off of that point.
Yeah.
So the movie feels, in a lot of ways, watching it now, because I didn't see it when it came out.
Yeah.
It feels kind of like a Marvel film where you can have some really cool and interesting stuff done up to a point, and then you hit the third act, and they're like, well, we need a big CGI fight fest. Again, not that
all practical here.
Yeah, not that this is
mostly,
CGI.
Mostly
but
practical.
it feels so kind of outside of what most of the film is about that it's very jarring. And it's action-packed, intense, whatever, but it feels like such a whiplash from the pacing that you've had almost up to that point.
Okay.
That it almost kind of like threw me out of the film kind of thing.
Yeah, and this actually just kind of like it feels like so this is like 2010 an inflection point in kind of film and how how they're budgeting.
Oh yeah, this had huge impacts too in terms of like other movies that were made after it.
It feels like this is kind of like an action movie that didn't like specifically these final two like action like levels when they're in the snow and then the one right before that or when they're in the rain.
Yeah.
That's the best way to describe it.
The city before it. Yeah.
Those two just feel like they're just like they thought that they wanted like this kind of action, but it definitely hurts the pacing of like where it's placed in the film. And it just doesn't it's not also internally consistent with kind of like what they're doing as well, especially which we'll get into in spoilers.
I was gonna say,
it stretches the manufactured logic of the film.
It does
a little bit, yeah. Like it gets a little odd.
But because like the parts of the film that I do like, and I know I just said it was kind of boring because there's a lot of exposition, but it's a lot of more of the stuff of like when you're in Cobb's mind at the like the lower levels of like the drama, which those are really good, and the performances and stuff are fantastic. It's really
and they support like that drama, that tension.
Yeah,
like the performances support it 100%, and I was all in on that stuff as well.
Yeah, and like I'm not trying to dog the film because it is definitely a film I'll rewatch. But the more I've watched the film, because I remember walking out of it the first time, I was like, "That was incredible! I can't believe he just did this." And then watching it again, and then again, and then again, it's just I lose a lot of the hype that I have because I'm like, "Oh, well, there's only like 2 scenes in this film that I really like," and I just got to get to that point.
Okay. I mean, I respectfully disagree with a lot of what you guys say. I don't want to go through and pick every point apart, but I will just say that I had none of the issues that y'all did in terms of that. I do agree that upon watching it multiple times, I had an insane amount of hype coming out of this the first time I saw it. I saw it 4 times in theaters.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. I really do love this movie. I don't think it has any pacing issues. I love the action scenes. I like the train downtown.
That's fine.
Right.
Well,
so I'm just saying, like,
those bits are okay.
Yeah.
I really think it's once you get to the snow sequences where it's just
I like all the snow.
Oh, good lord!
They're just like
It's just
shooting
gun
into
battles.
nothing.
Yeah,
It's just guns,
battles.
and guns are really boring.
They can be.
They can be unless you're Heat, which are.
Well, I was about to say, slow down there, Andrew. You're an American now. Don't say you can't say guns are boring. You might get kicked out of the country.
Well, Christopher Nolan's British. Thank you very much.
I know. I'm saying you're American now. Christopher Nolan's version of guns might be boring. I think it kind of is actually.
Yeah.
But I think that all of your points are still valid in that I think that the movie itself has a lot of style. I mean, obviously, Wally Pfister is the cinematographer, and he's just killing it.
Oh, yeah,
in this movie,
it's
right?
a very beautiful film.
Visually,
they did not have a second team for shooting.
Okay.
It was just Nolan and Pfister.
Right.
And I think that pays off a lot. I think that, again, we're back to the whole thing of Christopher Nolan's really particular.
Very singular vision on how things should go.
This is something he does a lot in a lot of his films. And I think that sort of stuff, that pays off a lot because there's no moments where you would say, oh, this just doesn't feel like the way the rest of this was shot.
There's definitely some movies where you can tell the second unit director did something because it's just functional or it's not like, it doesn't have the same style.
Yeah.
But you can feel Wally Pfister in every shot here. I think.
Man, that sounds dirty.
You can feel Wally Pfister in every shot. No, but for real, he's a fantastic cinematographer, and I think he's on full display here.
Wonder how much fun he was made of in high school.
I can't. It's probably
that must
unbearable.
Have been a brutal last name. Right?
He's listening to this episode,
especially because he's a video nerd.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Hans Zimmer's score is fantastic throughout it. I
think it's a little derivative, but at the time it was fantastic.
No, it's one of my favorite Hans Zimmer scores by far.
It has been derived. It was not derivative. Yeah. It's just everyone imitate. I actually put that in my notes.
It's the deriver.
Stop. Stop what you're doing.
Point.
All right?
No.
It's the original, and we've seen derivative takes on it.
There's a lot of clones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I in my notes I put that these are kind of the sounds and music that have defined Hollywood for a decade since it came
really
out.
has.
Well, they learned the wrong lesson, I think, from it. Because like when you actually listen to the score, there's a lot of like the track between him and Maul. When I don't want to get into spoilers, but like anything with Dom and his wife, that music score is just great. I love it. And it's not, but I think the meme has turned into, you know what I mean? Because the trailer, really, I think the trailer is what through a lot of it.
Andrew's going to get mad now. We're going to talk about modern trailers.
Oh, God, don't even get started.
Modern trailers are trash. But I do think that, like, specifically
kind of a bonus episode on
with this score, it got memeified. And, like, because of that, people don't actually remember how complex and different the score actually is.
Well, it's like whenever you go and watch, like, the original Matrix.
Right.
And you're just like, oh, well, I've already seen it. It's like, well, yeah, because this is what spurned all of
this
those.
is what,
it was incredible.
Yeah. So I think that for me, I'm a huge fan of Christopher Nolan. Like I love The Prestige, Memento, obviously The Dark Knight, all those movies.
That's a shame.
I also love Quentin Tarantino. I also love other good directors that you guys hate.
Ryan comes in here to support directors, and we're both just like,
y'all can just sigh, and the rest of our audience that loves him too is screaming at their car with me. Thank you. There's dozens of us.
That's the thing, though. Like Christopher Nolan, it's not that he makes bad films. I love Dunkirk.
So what are you sighing about? You don't like The Prestige or The Memento? Which one?
Prestige.
Why do you not like Prestige?
It's fine.
Okay, so
Prestige,
we have a whole
we have a whole episode about Prestige.
You can go listen
I wasn't
to our
on because I would have defended The Prestige.
Well, the problem with The Prestige is it's so wrapped up in itself as a magic trick.
Yeah.
That like all magic tricks, once you see how the trick is done, it's boring.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a barely valid complaint.
That's very valid.
That's a very valid complaint.
That's every mystery movie ever, though. Any movie with a twist. Like, you can't
I disagree.
Hold on now. We've done stuff like Clue, right? That's infinitely
So what is the
rewatchable.
difference in The Prestige in that?
Well, there's a different level of entertainment involved.
Yeah.
This is not an episode about The Prestige.
Yeah, The Prestige is just dour and very serious.
Maybe what we're figuring out here is just that, like, I like Christopher Nolan's dour, serious, weird movies, and y'all don't.
I mean, I love Interstellar. It's one of my favorite films.
But yeah, that's the thing is
to me that's all the same. Like I don't understand how you could look at
it. Is not the same.
To me, The Prestige, Inception, Interstellar, Tenet, they all are like a body of work of one.
I don't think I'm ever
going
to watch Tenet.
Okay.
I've never seen it.
Just looking at the concept, it looks too complex for me to care.
If you don't like Inception, I don't know that you would like Tenet.
No,
well, I'm just saying,
I don't dislike Inception.
But I'm saying,
I just think it is not the great film that everyone makes it out to be.
Use Inception as a jumping off point for Tenet. Because I don't think Tenet is as good as Inception. I think there is some visual stuff they do in Tenet that's crazy. But Tenet as a concept overall to me, and this is a tangent, I apologize, is not as...
He's unapologetically apologetic.
It's a bit more... loose than Inception is. And so it takes rewatching, and it also, and this is my biggest complaint with Christopher Nolan. I don't know why he's obsessed with people wearing masks that obscure dialogue. It doesn't really happen in this movie, but after The Dark Knight Rises, he was like, this is awesome.
I was born in the dark.
Exactly. So when you get to Tenet, and a large part of Tenet, people are just mumbling, and they have stuff in front of their mouth, and they have masks on, and you're like, I had to turn subtitles on, and I don't watch subtitles on like American.
Normal.
I don't watch subtitles on American.
No,
things.
I don't. There's a lot of people.
I mean, don't look at me. I don't either.
There's a lot of people that turn the volume down on their stuff, and they just leave subtitles
that's
up.
weird.
And that's psychotic.
Why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
I don't know.
You monsters.
I have friends that do that. They watch everything subtitled.
They just watch it on mute,
and the audio is like, no, it's on like 5 out of like 30, and I'm like, what? I'll go to their houses, and everything's just subtitled. I'm like, what are y'all doing?
Man, I want to be engulfed by the sound.
Exactly. I don't understand that. That's a whole nother ballpark.
Yeah,
of conversations
we're way off on
We're way off. I'm bringing it back.
I'm just going to say it. Interstellar is the best Christopher Nolan film. Fight me.
But see, there's no, I don't have a problem with that.
You haven't seen it.
I don't care. I don't have a problem with that.
You need to see it. Holy cow, it's very good.
We need to review it.
Now, I would hold back on that because Dunkirk exists.
No, Interstellar's better.
See, I'm gonna have a hard time.
Okay, we're in the
topping a
weeds.
war
Hold on.
movie.
Let's bring it back. We'll have a discussion about this another time. Okay,
Fight.
overall thoughts, I think we've kind of covered it. I love the movie. Andrew thinks it's okay. Steven thinks it's okay.
Yeah.
I think I have a higher opinion of it than Andrew does.
Okay.
Maybe just because I've seen it more.
Then that's
possible,
probably the issue here. Yeah, I've only seen it once.
Okay.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is Steven just has to watch it as many times as I have, and he will become down to my level.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you force me to watch it 3 times
I
back
was
to
gonna
back,
say,
I'm gonna
We're
be mad
talking
about
like
the film.
like Clockwork Orange with the eyes held open. Like, okay, so would you rewatch it, Andrew? Probably?
Yeah, I would.
Okay,
He's rewatched it a million times.
Steven, you've only seen it once. Would you rewatch it?
Yeah, probably. It'll be a little while.
Sure.
I don't have the need. I didn't have a moment after the film was over where I was like, "That's so awesome! I need to turn it back on." You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, another year. So
Ryan, would you rewatch this?
Obviously.
It's like 4 times in theaters.
I watch it quite a bit.
You've probably seen this as many times as I have seen Fellowship of the Ring.
I've seen that a lot too.
I'm not saying
But
that
yeah.
you haven't. I'm just
No.
saying that I've seen Fellowship of the Ring a lot.
No, so let me. Okay, so I saw it 4 times in theaters, and then after I've
How many
purchased
times
it,
did you see Fellowship of the Ring in theaters?
just the once.
4.
Oh
For
my,
me.
Ryan,
My friends didn't like it.
Ryan.
I was the only one that was like, "Let's go see it again."
How
They were like,
dare
"We're
you.
good."
You're allowed to go to theaters by yourself.
I could have, I guess.
Then
Not
you
when
could
you're in
buy-
high school.
Yeah, you can. Who
I
cares?
could drive at that
You
point.
just
too.
buy all the candy for yourself.
I
And sit
probably
there
didn't
like
have.
a monster.
I probably didn't have the money to go buy.
Yeah, no,
a ticket.
that's a valid point.
Probably more than anything. Yeah.
All right. Anyways, we're again on
well,
another tangent.
Okay,
We're
so
angry
yes,
today.
I would rewatch it. I saw it 4 times in theaters, and I've probably seen it 4 or 5 times at home. since
Okay,
then.
never mind. You're way under
Yeah,
my
no,
Fellowship
that's
of
what I was
the
about to say.
Ring
is
quotient.
It's not like I watch this every 6 months or anything. It's just I do watch it every now.
We
and
probably watch Fellowship of the Ring every 6 months.
then. Okay. That's. I mean,
That's a good life. That's a life well lived.
It is.
Yeah. Would you recommend it?
Yeah.
Okay. Who would you recommend it to specifically?
Someone that likes higher sci-fi concepts.
Okay, Steven, same.
I would also include if you like heist movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is a good. It's a neat twist on a heist.
It's
Yeah.
time heist.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Mind heist.
Mind
Time
heist.
Mind
Yeah.
heist. Yeah, mind
It's still
heist.
time heist.
I think
Yeah.
what the phrase Nolan used was a drama within the architecture of the mind.
Oh, please.
Hey, first, it's a drama within the architecture of the mind.
yeah.
So yeah, I would recommend it to anyone that likes a little more advanced sci-fi because like remember when we
It's a
saw
little
it,
high
And
concept.
this gets out there a little bit.
it
yeah.
does. When I saw it in theater, one of the 4 times, I brought my cousin with me and she watched it. And when it ended, she goes, "Thank God it's over." And I turned to her because everybody else was like, "Oh man," because they had never seen it
Yeah.
before. And I go, "What was wrong?" She goes, "I have no idea what just happened."
So I remember showing this film to my mom
Yeah.
back whenever like it came out like on DVD or whatever.
yeah,
And she watched. She was like, "I liked Leo in it. That was fun.
Yeah.
But I don't understand what it was."
So,
right.
Yeah.
fun fact, without going into kind of spoilers of what it's really all
My
about.
cousin didn't catch that they were dreaming. If that gives you an idea of how far
Oh.
behind the 8 ball she was
So
on this movie.
the Japanese release of this,
Mhm.
they put numbers in the upper left corner of the screen depending on which sequence, which level you are in to help the audience keep track.
Oh wow,
Really?
That's interesting.
Which I mean, I kind of get it, right? Because there's probably something lost in translation. Too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
probably
probably.
is.
So you want this is a very high concept film, and you don't want to just be like, "Hey, Japan, you don't get to understand."
Good
it,"
luck.
China.
Yeah, because you need to
Tough.
have a decent understanding of time dilation already, which
Yeah.
is a very common theme in all of Nolan's films.
Mhm.
He
But-
loves playing with time.
Oh, he really does.
Well, and they do that in a lot of sci-fi. And if you haven't seen, because I could see this
if you're
movie,
not up on that concept,
this
it
Yeah.
movie
would
being
be-
like a crossover between people who liked the Batman movies are
Yeah.
going to see this Inception thing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
thinking it's
Yeah.
an action movie, then getting in here and
it
being
kind
like,
of is.
"What is time dilation?"
Yeah.
Not being prepared like other people who'd seen a lot of sci-fi going into it.
Well, also, they were probably scared that Japan would just be like, "He ripped off Paprika."
Oh my God.
That's always a funny talking point because
Mm-hmm.
like we actually do have an episode of Paprika that you can go listen to right now.
Shameless shill
Check it
achieved.
out.
However, the big thing is actually, I mean, I always joke because
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's the same film. It's not.
It's
not
not
even
no,
close.
They're
It's-
very different
There's
films.
one scene where, it like is similar visually.
Similar, yeah.
That's it. Like
Yeah.
what's happening in that scene in both movies
Are
is
two very different
completely
things.
different things. And
Yeah.
the overall movies are
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're very different, and
They play with dreams.
Yeah, and that's basically
There we
the
go.
only
That's it.
commonality.
Yeah.
yeah.
We've been Flirting with Dreams, and that's right, you're not dreaming. If you want to listen to the rest of our content, you can check it out at spoilersintendedpodcast.com. If you think Andrew over here is an absolute dreamboat and would like to talk to him more, you can check out links to our Discord. If you want to support him in his endeavors, there's a Patreon.
Yep.
And links to our social as well.
But yeah, so if you like to just talk, you don't have to worry about talking with me. It's fine.
You can go many layers deep on our Discord.
Yeah,
there
are a lot of different channels with different discussions within them.
Yeah. Not always about the show. We have stuff about what we're listening to, what games we're playing, hobbies, all sorts of fun stuff.
Other stuff people are watching right now. Stuff we're excited for, or random news article blips that come out.
Yeah,
and it's free. We don't put our Discord behind any kind of paywall. You can just join it.
Put a Discord behind a paywall?
Oh,
yes. Absolutely can.
Yes,
okay.
Also, we have... absolutely, that's a thing that happens. We also have on social media, you should follow us there, Facebook and Instagram. That's the only two we have. Deal with it. And, every week we post what we're going to review next week and where you can watch it. So we'd love for you to, watch along and kind of have seen the movie before our episodes drop.
Yeah. That reminds me, I do have to make some graphics right now.
I was going to bring it up, but, just bring it up in the middle of the recording.
Yeah. Here we are.
Shame.
In media res, they're discovering what happens here.
See the sausage as it's made.
Gross. All right, that means we are past the spoiler wall. So if you have not seen Inception or care about spoilers, get out now. If not, stick around. We're going to get into some nitty gritty. And I want to start off with a little bit of trivia here.
Hit me.
I'm going to butcher the name of this French song.
Oh, boy. Good luck with this one.
Here we go.
Omelette du fromage.
Je ne regrette rien is a song by Edith Piaf, played throughout the film. It's 2 minutes and 28 seconds long, and the movie is exactly 2 hours and 28 minutes long.
Wow. You pretentious person,
yes,
Nolan.
The song also serves as the basis for Hans Zimmer's score, so he basically slowed it way down.
Oh, that's
cool.
So
the bump, 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 bump is like, when you slow it way down. So he basically slowed it way down and then put orchestration over that.
That's fun.
Of what the notes
that's
are.
Really cool.
And so his entire score is built somewhat, and a lot of the motifs are basically like riffs on and changes to that main song. And so that's why that song kind of runs throughout the entirety of it.
Can I play off that trivia?
Yeah, go for it.
I've probably taken something you've already written down.
No, go for it.
So the song's used throughout, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Edith Piaf, who wrote the song, Marion Cotillard, plays her in a movie.
Yeah, the biopic.
All of it. So Nolan said this is pure coincidence. And he actually, once she was cast, he lobbied to change the song just to get rid of that connection because he just didn't like it.
Really? They came out around the same time.
It came out in 2007. And Hans Zimmer is the one that persuaded him to keep it.
Good job, Hans.
Right?
Yeah.
But it is funny that this
Don't let
happened.
Christopher Nolan be
and Nolan's just like, I don't know if I want audiences to draw this connection.
Oh, please. No one cares.
Also, I know that Hans Zimmer does not sound like Werner Herzog, but I always picture him saying, show me the baby. Like that kind of, we must keep the Edith Piaf song in, Christopher.
So fun thing.
And I know he doesn't sound like that. In my head canon, he does. Continue.
So fun thing, my wife follows him on TikTok, and he has some fantastic.
I can't believe he's on. I can, but
Werner
I also
Herzog
can't.
or Hans Zimmer?
Hans Zimmer.
Because both is awesome. Continue.
But he has some fantastic breakdowns of some of his favorite tracks from like different films and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And you get to see obviously his studio, which is really really sweet.
Yeah.
And it is ridiculous how many like different guitars and keyboards and stuff.
Of course.
That he has.
He's got.
Even people who are just they don't get paid for this, and I walk into the room like, why do you have 8 guitars? Like, I just do.
Yeah, but he's got some really fun ones on there.
And I didn't have any of the trivia written down for this specifically, but I've seen in some of the special features and stuff like how they recorded some of this, and they had like, he was like, it needs to sound bigger, so they just like bring in like 100 tubas. They were just like, get them in here, fill the room. Another tidbit here, Ariadne is named after a character from Greek mythology.
Yep.
So in one myth, Minos actually asks Ariadne to take control of the labyrinth, much like Cobb asks Ariadne to take control of the labyrinths that he's usually charged with building, right?
Yep.
In fact, in one scene, Ariadne's drawing the maze for Cobb, and the maze that she draws really closely resembles the actual drawings of the maze from Greek mythology.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of a connection, small thing there. And the mountain fortress that serves as the setting for the film's climax could have been done with CGI.
But it was real.
But with instead, Nolan had a fortress built into the side of an actual mountain.
Yeah.
And they built a scale version of it to blow up.
Yeah. Which, I mean, like, that's cool. Like, the practical effects, and that's what makes this film, I think, what it lives and breathes on.
Let's get into spectacle then.
Hold on. I do think it's funny, though, that scene is because it's based on his favorite Bond movie, and it's On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, come on. You couldn't have a better favorite.
I mean, like, to be fair, you can also go listen to that episode right now.
Shameless show.
There we go.
Nailed it.
But the whole section of that film, whenever they're attacking
the actual attack on the compound,
great.
It's good. It's about the best the film gets. So.
Yeah, it is.
Also, really small, while we're transitioning into spectacle here, they actually set off an avalanche for that scene.
I know.
They dynamited it and made an avalanche because he's like, I'm not doing this in CG.
Yeah.
Which is just like, there's so much he did in this movie that is like,
well,
I can't believe the studio was like, go for it.
Well, now, hold on now. On the avalanche side, not to just be a incredibly pedantic person about this.
Avalanches happen all the time.
No, it's not they happen, but like they intentionally set off avalanches. Yeah,
controlled avalanches.
That's a safety thing.
Sure.
It's just like controlled burns for forest fires, right? It's the same idea of like that. So for all we know, the production helped where I don't know where they filmed that location. They helped that area.
They could have,
or they just worked with the people there and said, "Hey, do you have an area where you are like, hey, we might need to trigger an avalanche. We want to just film it. According
to Nolan, it's the biggest practical effect he's ever done is creating an actual avalanche.
Except for maybe Oppenheimer at this point.
Oh yeah,
we'll see. Yeah, we'll find out.
We'll see once that comes out.
Yeah.
Okay, so spectacle. Let's get into it. Steven, what did you think about the spectacle?
Okay, well, we're gonna kick it right off with. There's a lot of practical stuff happening here, and in this day and age, you have to stop and appreciate it when people take the time to build these sets, do these things.
Yeah.
Like the whole hallway sequence isn't CGI.
Right.
Yeah. All those things. You have to appreciate that because there's a whole lot of stuff out there where you're not going to get that.
No, and like for the hallway specifically, right? They built 3 different sets. There's one that they're all like 100-foot long, but one is like a basically a vertical up and down set that they suspended the actors from, wires to give the 0G feel, right? Another one is basically on a rotating centrifuge, and he got the idea from watching 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick, who had the big rotating area, and he was just like that, but like 100-foot long,
but bigger.
What's crazy?
Their set designers like, wait, what?
So Joseph Gordon-Levitt did all of his stunts in that whole sequence.
You have to,
and he trained for like over a month to get it right. And what they figured out once they started shooting it was that like someone has to manually control the speed at which it turns. They couldn't just set it on one rate and let it go because the transition from one wall to another didn't give them time to go from the left side to the right to get ready for the next turn.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like it speeds up and then slows down, but you don't catch it in the actual
just because the way it's shot.
Yeah. And they used a couple of different cameras. One of them is like a camera basically on an arm that is like stationary, and that's
it's in the center.
Oh, it's like in the center into it, so it can rotate or not rotate.
And it gives you that feeling of like it twisting.
Yeah.
And the other one was mounted to what was the floor on like these basically invisible rails underneath the carpet. And it stays stationary so that when things are turning and the characters are going around,
it'll rotate,
it's moving with it or whatever. And then,
that's really fun and really cool to do. And the ultimate effect you get out of it is great, right?
The hotel room that they eventually spill into was like the 3rd set, and it was also on like a rotating thing.
Yeah.
But it was like a separate thing. So they built 3 of these to get that whole sequence, and they wanted to capture as much of it in one shot as they could.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was interesting, I had never seen this before, was the some of the scenes where he's like floating around in 0G, and he's like hitting the elevator button, and you just see him from the waist up. They have like a dolly.
Oh, he's like,
and he's just laying on top of like a massage table that's connected to like a mechanical arm with a counterweight on the other side, and it gives you that kind of
he's
like
a stable cam.
Yeah.
And so they
turned Joseph Gordon-Levitt into a stable cam.
They did. They did that in a few scenes here, and he used it again in Interstellar to do a lot of the 0G when they're like floating into like.
But I mean, that's smart, right? Like that's a good solution that ultimately is a lot cheaper than being like, I want to film this on the vomit comet,
right?
Which they did in Apollo 13.
Yeah. Well, but for there, it made sense.
It also makes sense because that's how it works.
Yeah. So what? Sorry, I kind of jumped in on your spectacle there, Steve.
Well, I mean, just as a general rule, I really love the way the film was shot. Like we can kind of, joke about Nolan about a lot of things,
Yeah.
right? But he's very, very dedicated to what he's doing. No second unit, just him and the cinematographer all the time.
And it always shows.
Yeah, no, we're going to go light on the CGI, get to this 3D garbage out of here, build that set, build this set, make me a model of it so I can blow it up. Like, the commitment there pays off over and over and over and over and over again. And I can always appreciate that.
Well, I think too, like for me, I appreciate Nolan's use and Wally Pfister's use of slow motion a lot better than I do Zack Snyder's.
Stop taking my point.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You go off about it. Yeah, well, for this movie, especially with time dilation, it makes sense. It actually plays into it.
Yeah.
But the way they filmed it and the way they shot the slow motion, to me, works a lot better. Jump off that, Andrew.
Well, yeah. So, I was going to say, the practical effects are fantastic.
Yeah.
But the thing that really sticks out to me is this is a fantastic use of slow-mo because it actually ties into the plot.
Yeah.
Which is what is so impressive about it, because especially whenever the van is basically falling off the bridge and going into the water, and the water's coming up around
because
them.
It would be slow-mo compared to the level they're actually at.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
Yeah, they made a good use of that.
And there's some really good, the slow-mo just looks phenomenal. And it's one of those things where, if Christopher Nolan wasn't so particular about using practical effects and doing it the right way, I'll say, it would be a lesser film for it.
Well, I feel like they would have done it with CG and it would look obvious.
The slow-mo would just make it more obvious.
Or they probably shot this at 2,000 frames a second or something. He probably would have shot it. Someone would have shot it 240 and just kind of slowed it down.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean?
Him going the extra mile to make that happen is it definitely adds to it. But the other thing too is, just the general cinematography is just beautiful.
Lighting is really good.
Yeah, the scene whenever Ariadne and Dom are just, she's basically experiencing the
dream world
for the first time.
Yeah.
And them just kind of walking through, and she's changing stuff as it's falling on top of
the
her.
city's folding over on top.
Yeah, it's really it's just really pretty.
Yeah, that whole sequence is one of the ones that stands out in my mind visually, of just what a cool concept and idea, And I think some of the subtle stuff too, like they called Primrose Steps. What are they called? The
loop.
Yeah, the loop.
The forever stairs.
Yeah, when when Joseph Gordon-Levitt's explaining to her, and then you can just mess with the environment, and then the camera drops and you see it, and it's cool.
Penrose Steps.
Penrose Steps. Yeah. So that kind of stuff is fun too. I think.
Well, it's a lot of fun. It's MC Escher, right?
Yeah.
So it's fun to see that style just done on camera as opposed to a static image.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I agree that I think it's a mixture of the cinematography not only being very deliberate and consistent throughout, but I think it's the choice of lighting and even the color grading to kind of give each scene and each level kind of a distinct feel.
It does, yeah,
and kind of look to me at least helps you visually keep track of where you're at and stuff. And they do a good job of making other areas, when they go to Mombasa, it looks different. It has a different feel.
Yeah, it has a very different feel.
Yeah, in not only just the city, obviously, but the colors and the lighting, everything they do kind of has a different feel to it. So
we were talking about his commitments here, right?
Yeah.
And I was scrolling through some trivia. So when shooting the snowmobile chase, there are intermittent wind gusts. In order to preserve continuity during the takes without natural wind, they use the camera helicopter to blow snow into the frame.
Oh,
holy cow.
Do it.
That'll do it. Yeah, that's right. Modern filmmakers do that with your drone. Hold it in your hand.
Do that with your drone, Michael Bay. That's great. Any other thoughts on spectacle, Andrew?
Nope.
No, I think it's very well done.
It's very pretty.
There's very few things, or honestly, almost anything I can think of where I was like, "Ooh, that was rough."
I think they also even in the beginning scene where they're in Saito's mind and they're in when the water starts crashing in at the end when he's getting the kick and he falls into the bathtub. What a crazy I don't know how they filmed that or how they thought to do that.
Just the concept and the execution of it.
Yeah.
Especially at that point, because you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's just bonkers insane of what is happening,
Yeah.
Well, and actually the only thing that I do knock it for, and I mentioned earlier, was really just the action scenes didn't feel I'm not going to say real.
That's fair.
They didn't feel visceral.
They didn't feel they did not feel like they were shot by an action director.
I think that's what it is.
I think that's where the real
Okay.
failing
Which, I mean,
is.
he technically is. He did all the Batman films and everything,
Yeah.
but it's
Batman doesn't use guns.
I mean, guns are used against him.
Oh yeah, but Batman
Yeah.
doesn't use them.
But yeah, it didn't feel like there was a lot outside of the Joseph Gordon-Levitt like kind of sequence of him
That
like
sequence,
going like
yeah.
that's phenomenal.
That fight sequence in the hall is a whole separate different
Yeah, but
issue.
the first level in the rain and then the second or the third level in the snow just didn't do it for me. It just felt really generic.
I feel like it's a thing where the action is more just there in service of the story
Yes.
as
It is,
as a
yes.
component instead of it being
a showpiece.
the story is there to
To
prop up
facilitate
the
the
action.
action.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the inverse. So that may be kind of what
I think that's
yeah.
probably where it is.
And you
All right.
don't really have a moment. And you kind of have a moment, I guess, with the van going off the bridge. But like going back to the Batman, you don't have a whole thing where we're flipping an 18-wheeler, right? You don't have one of those moments where you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the train going through downtown,
It was meant to be.
which
but
by the way, he got an actual train in downtown Los Angeles and ran it along the ground. I was like, what?
I don't even know how you
I don't-
do
yeah,
that.
Well,
I
I saw the behind the scenes. They just got this train down on the ground. And I'm like, can it go off rails? I didn't know that. Could you just power it up? So I don't know if they did some kind of special thing to
Who
not destroy the
knows? Yeah.
street or what
They had
happened.
to.
They
Trains
had
are not
to,
lightweight.
But yeah, they ran a train
Wow.
across a bunch of traffic in
That's
the middle
awesome.
of Los Angeles. Anyways,
Yeah.
let's move on to performance.
Sure.
Steven, who went first that
He
time?
I
went
did.
first.
Why don't you
yeah.
go first? What do you think about performance, Andrew?
So this was I wasn't like Leonardo DiCaprio is probably one of my favorite actors for like drama roles and everything.
Yeah.
This one he's a little bit more subdued.
He is.
He doesn't have. This is not. I'm not going to say it's a bad performance. He did really good.
No, yeah.
But it's not one of his better performances where he really pulls something out of the character.
Yeah.
The other thing that I didn't really I was sad about was Ken Watanabe just didn't get enough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because he did
was
really good
kind
as
of-
Saito.
He's kind of a side character for some.
He
And
is.
it's ironic because the whole reason Nolan brought him into the film was because he was in one of the Batman movies.
Probably the Dark Knight.
And he felt like
I want to say.
he was so good, he needed a bigger role. So he brought him to this. It's like, dude, you still didn't give him enough.
Yeah,
Oh, no, he was in
it-
the
it-
first one. He was Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
the fake Ra's al Ghul.
fake. But
Oh, yeah,
But that's
yeah.
the thing is, like, if you go and watch Last Samurai,
Mhm.
where Ken Watanabe is one of the main characters, and you
He can bring so much.
He brings the
Oh, yeah.
fire.
He's really good.
And yeah, so him in this film, I wanted more out of it, but I mean, like, he did a good job, and everyone else did like serviceable roles. It
Mhm.
just didn't really feel like I got a lot of emotion out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, some of the standouts are Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy
I
did really
really
good.
like his character. as
he
Eames.
mumbles a lot though.
It's
He
Tom
does,
Hardy.
but it's
just
Tom
what he
Hardy,
does,
yeah.
And then
At least he's not wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cillian Murphy. I think he does
He did
really
great.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's always good.
Tom Berenger also like
Oh, he's
not
great.
that he surprised me because it's Tom Berenger, but I guess when I saw this, it had been a long time since I'd seen him
Oh, you-
in.
He's the
thought-
one.
thought
He's the
about Tom
bodyguard,
Berenger.
right?
He's the older
The Cillian's.
Like
his like number
Guardian.
two
Yeah,
guy,
yeah.
Guardian, yeah.
Yeah, and
Mentor or
they have
something,
like the kind of the back
Yeah.
and forth between them.
Yeah.
Because like my
Great.
biggest like pull for him is like Major League, and,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
some other like movies like that. And so to see him, I mean, I know he's been in serious stuff. I've seen him in a couple of serious things, but he up until that point hadn't been in any like huge movies in a while.
Yeah.
And so I thought he
he
surprised
kind of
me.
fell off the radar. And
He
then
did.
just pops up and you're like, oh, it's Tom
He
Berenger.
did like 3 or 4 of these like sniper movies. I can't remember the name of
yeah,
them. And then
I think
like,
they might actually be called Sniper.
well, okay, yeah. There's a Mario Van
The
Peebles
Sniper, the
movie
American
that's similar.
Sniper.
It's like, yeah, it's one of those. But it's like he did the first one, and then like the other two were like straight to DVD. And that's where his
Yeah,
career went.
yeah.
And then Inception happened. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I forgot about this guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Cillian Murphy for me steals the show on a lot of levels because he portrays that like the progression of his
Yeah.
character of
Mhm.
like going from one thing to the other. It makes you believe that Inception has actually
Yeah.
happened
Yeah.
to see that catharsis.
It's literally just called Sniper. That's
Okay,
the film
yeah.
name.
Yeah.
I was pretty sure it was just one. Oh gosh, there's been 3 of them.
I was gonna say he did the first one, it was okay, and then like the other 2,
Yeah.
and they may not have been straight to DVD. I just remember that
They
was like
feel like they're.
they feel like they should have been if
do.
they weren't. Steven, what do you think about the performances?
So it's funny, right? Because on one hand, I want to object in the idea that every time Nolan makes a film, he
Mhm.
includes specific people in it. Except
Michael Caine.
the specific people he's pulling in
Michael Caine.
are good actors, so I can't really fault him for being like, well, yeah, I want to work with these people
Yeah.
again.
No,
Like,
yeah,
it's like, well, should I work with Cillian Murphy again? Like, gee, I don't know. Should I? dude, why would you not if you can, right?
Yeah.
Like, so
I guess I'll put Tom Hardy in here.
yeah, I guess I'll bring Tom Hardy in. Better go get Joseph Gordon-Levitt, you know.
Yeah.
But you see a lot of the same actors over and over again in his films.
Yeah.
And I do think that works because obviously they have good working relationships. It's not like Cillian Murphy's like, oh gosh, this guy again. He's obviously showing up for reasons, right?
Yeah.
So I think that helps the film a lot. I enjoyed the play between Leo's character Dom and Marion Cotillard, I'm butchering her name.
Yeah.
Mal's character. I really liked basically all of their scenes. I felt like because it's a different danger in a dream versus just he's got a gun. If he kills me, I die. Right?
She does a really good job of coming across as like dangerous,
like unhinged,
dangerous.
She turns the corner. You're like, oh no,
yeah.
So I thought those were really well done, and also kind of the interplay between them. And what it kind of forces from the other characters in terms of like evaluating, well, can we keep doing this? Like the initial heist you get at the start, where she just shows up, you don't know what's going on. It's just, this person's, an interloper. Why should, there's
this is a big problem.
There's a whole drama associated with this, let me tell you,
Yeah.
Well, and I thought Elliot Page did a great job as Ariadne and being kind of like the neophyte that all the exposition unfortunately happens.
Has to land on. Yeah.
And which it's a lot of exposition and a lot of technobabble.
There's so much theory stuff that they have to beat into you just to be able to make you understand, why does this matter?
Well, to understand, the stakes of what they're about to do.
But I think that's a little more of a plot.
Probably
thing,
but
it is.
As far as like Ariadne's character, I like the performance. That happened.
I don't think there was anyone where I would be like, ooh, we got a bad performance.
No, but and this is more of a plot, I think, is I would have liked to have gotten more background and development with each of them because they were very interesting. Like Eames, Arthur, all of them have like this some kind of a past that we're alluded to.
Yeah.
And I would
but we
have
just
loved
don't
to.
get anything else after
Yeah,
that.
we don't. And there's really not time for it. Like, I get it, from
They're just going to the dream. It's time dilation. They got all the time in the world.
It's a 6-hour movie.
They got to meet the 2:28 requirements of this song.
Yeah. And I wonder with that, since Nolan lobbied not to do that, if that was just like it kind of happened.
And he was like,
really
close.
Add a minute. We're almost there.
They're like, we're 3 minutes over. Just cut this down a little bit. Let's get there.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on into score. Obviously, I like this score. I think it's probably my favorite Hans Zimmer score overall.
Ooh.
Not my favorite songs.
Ooh, wow.
Ooh, man, I don't know about that at all.
So hold on. I'm going to jump in here. Before Andrew wades in here, I'm going to jump in real quick.
Yeah.
I think the problem with this score is that it's been so imitated and beaten to death.
Right.
That now in 2022, 2023, we're all kind of sick of it. So that I think works against it.
If you're going into the film new.
Right. If you just see it,
I was going to say,
if you're going into the film
that's
new.
kind of unfair to judge it based on what other people have done.
Right.
Yeah.
If you saw that we were reviewing this because we put our things up on social media.
And you've never seen it before.
And you've never seen it before. You watched it and you were just like, man, I've heard all these sounds before.
Yeah.
Like that does work against it in terms of like timelessness.
Sure.
You have to have the caveat of this is where it started, right? This is where a lot of these
It's where a lot of it started.
Things that are relied upon in modern movies, for better or worse, this is where they came from. It was a huge success, so people are going to imitate it.
Yeah.
I just love like the horn sections and what Hans Zimmer does in all of his scores with the horns, but in this one especially, there's just several like songs, especially the more emotional songs when it's like
I love me a good
like I don't know.
I love me a good orchestral score, especially with some good horn work. Like give me a French horn in there. You can do a lot with that.
Yeah.
For supporting emotion, right?
Yeah. So the score on this is fine. It is. I'm not going to say it's probably even in my top 5 of Hans Zimmer scores.
Wow. Okay.
But it is very good, and it's definitely on my.
He does have a lot of good scores.
Yeah. I was going to say that. Just saying it's not in my top 5. Like there are a lot of Hans Zimmer scores out there
that are bangers.
And to be clear, when I say it's my favorite. Like I think I like all of the songs on this score. Where he has other scores where I like a song better than any of these songs, but it's just that song and everything else on that score is like,
yeah, no, that's totally fine.
So continue.
But the thing that really knocks it for me is the sound design, and like the sound mixing, especially for dialogue, is really bad.
Okay.
I had an incredibly hard time every time I've watched it, and through multiple different kinds of things, we're understanding a lot of the characters, whatever they're saying.
Okay. I've never had that.
Just because, like, specifically Tom Hardy just mumbles. But
He
that's
does.
just his character.
He
and
does,
that's
yeah.
just how he like stuff. It's the same problem in Mad Max, like Fury Road.
He
Like,
does kind of grumble
yeah,
and mumble.
God, you can't understand the thing he's saying. But there was just a lot of times, especially at the beginning, when him and Ken, or Dom and Ken Watanabe, or Leo, and are like talking back and forth. I can't understand a thing they're saying.
Man,
Okay.
I gotta say, we were talking about Hans Zimmer, like top 5 scores. And I pulled up Wikipedia, just like, well, how much has he really
A
done?
lot.
Oh, he's done a
Holy
lot of
cow,
stuff.
It's so easy to forget. Like I'm above 40 in count, and I am only in the mid 90s at Lion King.
Yeah.
It's like,
he's
good
done
Lord.
so much.
And there's a lot of stuff like A League of Their Own or what was the other? Days of Thunder that just don't even occur to me yet.
You don't even think
I
about
think
it.
about that as a Hans Zimmer.
I think
film.
Days of Thunder was his first one.
That's before he
No.
really had
No?
his style, I would say.
And it might be one of his first in like maybe American
Oh,
cinema or something
okay,
like that.
yeah.
But I mean, he's got a discography going back to 1982.
Oh, okay.
Like
Days of Thunder was
1990.
Yeah.
Sorry, not to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
So-
I don't really have anything else, but
Just the sound
I
mixing
just
was
had a
off,
hard
yeah.
time with the sound
Now,
mixing.
I'll agree with that too.
Mhm.
There are definitely, and I think this is kind of, again, a problem with a lot of modern cinema.
It's a problem
Where-
with specifically a lot of Nolan movies.
Yeah,
I'll
Oh,
just
yeah,
say that.
yeah. Like it's just a thing with Nolan.
It gets
Yeah.
worse with Tenet too. Just to be clear, if anyone's listening to this and hasn't watched Tenet
Andrew's
yet,
never going to see that film.
Man.
Never.
like I like Tenet, but it is like
Do you turn the subtitles on for it?
I had to. Like I didn't have to with this movie, but I've also seen this movie like 9 times, so maybe I
Yeah.
just know what they're saying.
But
Yeah.
it does get quiet. I do
Yeah.
remember, while watching it, that I was playing with the volume a lot because I really don't want to put subtitles on because I want to watch
Yeah.
the cool stuff happening on screen and not read. But I also was like, I think I backed up a couple of sequences and I was like, okay, we're going to turn the volume up. And then it was like, brrr, I was like, oh God, what have I
See,
done?
for me, I like dynamics though in my sound. I like things to get really quiet and things to get crazy
But-
loud.
I do
But the
too.
thing is,
yeah.
the dynamics needs to be not such a huge range where it's like, in order to hear the dialogue, you blow your speakers out when something blows up.
Yeah, you still
Valid,
need to
yeah.
have clarity
it needs
of
to
dialogue.
be tight. Yeah.
100%. And
Yeah.
again, I fully admit that is an issue that Nolan has had really
Forever.
since, I guess the Prestige, it wasn't that bad. But like
Dark
post
Knight.
Prestige, yeah, like
Dark Knight was
Dark
was
Knight-
pretty
Dark
rough.
Knight has
Dark Knight
issues.
Rises, Inception, did Dunkirk?
Interstellar's similar.
Yeah.
Like there are definitely some moments where like the score is just so overpowering
you can't hear what
that
they're
you
saying.
just can't hear what they're saying.
Yeah, no, it's an issue with a lot of Nolan movies for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah.
his obsession is with like, I don't want you to be able to hear what
I
I'm
don't want.
saying.
I don't want
What?
you to know what's going on. What?
Okay, so I
Plot?
think we've covered score. Let's move on to plot.
Speaking
Yeah,
of-
I want you to start.
Speaking
Okay.
of not knowing what's going on,
I have no idea. I've seen this movie 8 times. No, I'm just kidding. I like the plot. I think there are definitely some holes in a lot of stuff that you could poke in. Like,
Think a little bigger, darling. And he pulls out a grenade launcher that they didn't have like the scene
yeah,
before.
and it's stuff like that I'm like, they should have done that more often so that it was a thing.
Yeah.
that is established.
that you can
and-
get away with in
Yeah.
the dream world.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
They should have done that more so that scene is like, oh yeah, idiot, you can dream bigger. you
yeah,
know?
and it's like, well, if you can do that, then why are we even like fighting these guys?
Why is this a
Well,
struggle?
so-
Yeah.
Dream up a tactical nuke? Let's go.
Right. I think what they
But
needed.
you need to preserve what's inside the building. Come on, now,
Yeah.
hold on.
Let me back up a little bit because I want to get into that a little bit. Like, I think plot wise, I love the concept of what they did. I love the setup.
100%.
I love the,
Yes.
the getting the team together. I love the planning, the heist.
I mean, it's a heist. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here for these
Yeah.
kinds of things.
and
yeah.
I love the angle of Maul is this disruptor that they cannot plan for or control.
And that
like,
but that has to be included because they have to include Dom.
they have
Yep.
to include him. And
Yeah.
that, to me, that is
Wild
one of
card.
yeah, one of the bigger factors that sets this apart from other heist movies or stuff like
Yes,
this is
there's
that,
no
like,
avoiding it.
there's
You
no
can't.
avoiding.
Yeah.
This isn't somebody you can like, well, wait till they're out of the country or whatever.
Yeah.
This is
or
a
even
projection.
just be like, hey, we're gonna do a side job and kill this person. You can't
Right.
do that. It's just
Yeah.
part of another
Yeah.
person.
And so for me, that layer is great.
It's great.
I love the plot between him and his wife and the whole setup of how he accidentally incepted her and how she
Right.
took her and why she took her own life.
Yeah.
Like that whole idea is like, whoa.
Yeah, there's
Like-
so much going on in just within
Yeah.
that own chunk of itself that like feels great in
Yeah.
terms of like this is drama, this is tension, there's so much happening emotionally.
Well, and it's that idea of we didn't think about this before we got this deep down, but like now she is convinced that
now,
the dream world is real.
How do we
Yeah.
get out of it?
Oh
right?
no, like we have gotten to this level and we don't know how to get out type thing.
Mhm.
And then they got out and then, oh God, like she thinks that.
But did she
light-
actually
they're
get
still in
out?
the dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that to me as a core like tenet of the movie of like this is what it's kind of built around and what the plot kind of evolved and Dom's whole issue.
Yeah.
I love that. I love
Mhm.
that dynamic because it's that when I first saw this movie it felt very fresh and just the whole
It did.
character of Maul
Absolutely.
and that felt fresh to me. I do like the idea of time dilation going down in layers because that is how it feels when you dream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you'll
you're like,
you
wow,
can-
I had like a 2-hour dream. It's like been 20 minutes.
It's
Yeah.
been 20 minutes.
Or
yeah.
like you have one of those crazy dreams where it's like I've lived a life for months and then you wake up from a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all have had. I've had stuff
Oh,
like
I
that.
definitely,
Yeah. So that part I love. I love that idea. I do think there is some mechanical issues with like how the kicks work.
It's not
and-
definitely not internally consistent.
No, and I've seen people go back and forth online trying to say like, well, it's the compounds that dude's using, and I'm like, okay, then how do they get kicked at all? Like, what counts?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like what does break and what doesn't
It's like,
break.
oh, we missed the kick. And it's just like, okay, well, how are you going to get kicked out now?
You're in a van
Right.
falling off of a bridge. Do you need a bigger kick than this, honestly?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think with that one, it was the wrong kick happened.
Yeah.
It's like it's got to be the layer directly above you to pull you up. It can't be the layer above that kick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's some
the mechanics
fast
within
and
that
loose,
could be I actually put that in my notes that Nolan's use of timelines can get loose at
It
times.
does.
Yeah.
It does.
But I am glad from a plot perspective that they didn't go into the nitty gritty, like hard sci-fi levels of how the machines work.
Yeah, we don't need
that.
strap it to your wrist
Yeah.
and you get put under and
Yeah.
we're running.
So
Yeah,
I think
that's about all we need.
Their execution of that was well done in that like it just is what it is. We can share dreams. Let's
Yeah.
move past it. You know,
Mhm.
like we don't need to get because I've seen a lot of people complain about like, but how does this work? And
Well,
how did
we don't
It's
need
just-
to know.
It's just something that's
Yeah.
understood by all the characters in the universe because they're all associated with it. It's existed. No one needs it explained to them.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate it on that level. Yeah, I think for me the biggest the plot stuff that I enjoy the most again is the Dom and Maul dynamic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Her
Wait, what was the
dynamic.
emotional core of the film?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think all that works for me. I think again mechanically in the plot, like the getting the crew together stuff is really good. I like Eames, I like Arthur, and I like Ariadne and the interactions they have. And again, I like the idea of that Ken Watanabe's character Saito is like, I'm just trying to break apart this empire.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
how do we do that? So like the solution they come up with, I love that part. And especially when it changes midway through, like they're going to go from him being like, I hate my father to I had catharsis you know,
Yeah.
with my father. I was
Right.
like, ooh, because it makes, to me, in a heist movie, it changes it from like being a mechanical, like a vault you're trying to break
Yeah.
Mhm.
into more of a like, a mental, how do we convince this guy that this thing is happening? And that again felt very fresh,
Well,
you know, the first time I
yeah,
saw this.
And also
Yeah.
within every good heist movie, right? You need a moment where things go sideways, where the necessary tools slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
A door closes they didn't need to close it, and then how do they improvise and respond?
Yeah.
So you have that again. We already approach a different style of heist at this point, but by having that flip of we're trying to convince him of this, we have to adjust on the fly by what we learned from him to know how we
Yeah.
can influence. That is your door closes before it should have, right? And
Right.
how does the crew respond and who improvises better or not, kind of thing.
So what did you think, Andrew? Plot-wise?
I mean, I'm pretty much kind of on the same level. I really lost a lot of it. Like a lot of the momentum with the film for me
Mhm.
was like whenever they were just like Dom was just explaining like how to make dreams and stuff like
Mhm.
that. I think like the sequence itself visually is stunning and very, very pretty. And it definitely needs to be in the film.
Mhm.
It feels like a lot of the scenes take a little bit longer than they probably should.
Mhm.
And but a lot of it was just the internal inconsistency of like how the kicks work. And because like it just seems like, oh well, that kick didn't work because clearly we're not done with the heist yet, so we just need to keep going. But it's like it seems like artificial tension,
a little bit,
Yeah.
yeah.
and it doesn't really like add anything to it beyond just they're aware that something happened above the level or whatever that they're in. And I don't know. I mean, it was fine.
Okay.
So I think for me, kind of the explanation, right, where he takes Ariadne in,
Yeah.
and where that works in, say, like The Matrix, and where it doesn't work here in terms of it feels like it's too long or there's too much explanation has to happen,
Yeah.
is in The Matrix, you get to bounce back and forth between the characters who are in the construct and the characters who are in the real world and talking to each other. Oh, can he do this? Is this possible? Whereas here, you don't have any of that. So you don't get the jump back and forth of, because you can't really have an observer. It doesn't work that way. The
Mechanically,
mechanic doesn't allow it
like that. Yeah.
And so I think that is where, if you had a mechanic like that, one, it could have solved some of your kick problems, where it's the person is observing the status and making the decision of, do I pull the kick or not? Or for explanation, where you can have side discussion happening of them like judging her performance, or, oh, you know, even Dom couldn't pull this off the first try.
Yeah.
Kind of like that could have added a lot more to it, I think. But again, now we're playing with other mechanics, and how do we explain those mechanics?
I was going to say,
how
now
do we
you have to
justify
explain.
Then it feels a little bit too much like The Matrix. You know,
yeah,
those kind of things.
So there's risk and reward in that. But I think if they could have found a way to pull that off, like it wipes most objections that I could bring up until we get to the final act of just, oh, we broke out guns. Okay.
Yeah.
you know?
Well, in the absolute concept, like you said, is fantastic. I think it's
phenomenal.
Like, I
ideas.
love that idea. And it's a really good idea that I'm glad that, you know, like, you made a film for it. Like,
Sure.
I'll definitely watch this film again. It's just every time I watch it, I just get more bored with a lot of the sequences that I already didn't really like.
It sounds like we're in entertainment.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So
I mean,
let's just
plot,
make the transition.
Plot just becomes entertainment.
Yeah.
Inevitable.
It does.
But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Whereas, like, the more I watch it, I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay, we're at this. I got what, 5 minutes before another scene where I, you know, like, we're in Mombasa now. Okay, cool. I like this scene. You know, like those kind of things.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
To where, like, I'm definitely checking my watch of like, okay, how much longer is in this film?
I could definitely, for the third act, like in the snow with the gunplay and everything, where like this person's been shot and they're hurt, you know, those, I could just press fast forward for so much of that, because it's such a change from what most of the film was about. I just don't, it just doesn't hold me like a climax should. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that is the biggest, entertainment-wise, the biggest failing of the film, because there's so much build-up up to that point and so many good things going on, and then we kind of get sidetracked into this other stuff, and it's like, I didn't need that, guys. We were doing so well, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. Agree to disagree. I love the third act. It keeps me on the edge of my seat all the way to the end. I don't fast forward through any parts, because I think for me too.
No, I'll definitely say this. I don't fast forward through films.
But yeah, you know what I'm saying? I don't look at my watch.
I would like to.
Yeah.
I don't look at my watch and go, oh, 5 more minutes till the scene I like. I like all the scenes. I think too, it's because I just like it a lot also. Fine. But then I think I can, even in the downtime, if you will, like in the scenes that aren't my favorite, I can still appreciate Wally Pfister's cinematography enough to keep me from being bored. I can appreciate just all that stuff. Keeps me personally going through even the lower sections of the movie where it's not as engaging and stuff. So yeah, I obviously enjoy this movie. I don't think we need to go too far into my entertainment on this. I like it a lot.
There's definitely some sequences in there, because we've talked about this before on the show, where you're watching at home and you'll have a moment where like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom, and you pause it and you're like, how is there still an hour left? And that one, where it's kind of those things where I press the button and be like, how is there still 20 minutes left? And I push again and be like, it's only been 5 minutes. How? You know, like.
Well, and to be clear, I think Inception for me, even though I do love this movie, is not something I can just put on whenever necessarily. I got to be in the mood
gotta
for
be
it.
in the mood.
Because it does have a very specific type of pacing. And so I think
most of Christopher Nolan's films that aren't like the Batman films are very like, you have to be in the mood to watch it.
You do, absolutely.
Yeah, you're not going to go throw on Dunkirk or Interstellar.
No.
Oh yeah, no. Just some light Friday evening viewing while we're hanging out with a bunch of friends. Put Dunkirk on.
Yeah.
No.
I would say Interstellar probably even more than this to me. Like, I got to be in the mood. I love Interstellar.
Yeah.
But like, it does have a very deliberate pace at times.
You got to be ready to cry.
You got to be ready for that. You got to be like, I mean, I guess that could be said about just about any movie. But
I was just
specifically with these,
I was going to say, now if you do want something like that, you have a Batman trilogy
that
everyone's familiar with, and you can just kind of have on the background. And then when you know, Bane walks on the screen, everyone in the crowd can just be like, oh, you immediately adopted the darkness. You know,
I was born in it.
We all just did terrible Bane impressions. Wow.
Maybe his Bane impression is a terrible Bane impression.
Got it.
Maybe it's impossible to do a good impression of a terrible impression.
Yeah.
Oh,
there it is.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow. This is a tangent, but it'll be the last one. Then we're going to wrap up. I got to see a sneak peek of the opening scene of
Dark Knight
Dark Knight Rises at
Uh-huh.
the IMAX at the McWayne Science Center here in town.
Oh, no.
And it's the dome one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
number one,
Oh, no.
terrible place for that to happen. Like, I don't know why Warner Brothers
Who had that
selected
idea?
that one.
Yeah.
But I went there, and this was the first time I'd seen an IMAX there. And when I
Oh.
got there, and I was like, oh, wait, it's the dome
It's the
IMAX.
dome.
And so when they did it, everybody's face was stretched way
yeah.
out. And I was like, I don't think this is how...
Nolan
Okay,
intended this.
Because like you'd like look all the way to the left to see what somebody's saying, and then it'd be like the next person's over here. My neck was hurting from like going back and forth. But that was the they did like this early screening.
Yeah.
And the 100% feedback from everybody was I couldn't understand Bane. And so Christopher Nolan's like, okay, and he made it better in the movie.
Yeah.
Still not great. So
Wait,
I got
hold
to
on.
see the
what
earliest
we got in the movie was an improved version.
version.
No.
And let me tell you, in the screening, I don't know a single word that man said. Because when he comes on screen, and I was like, I thought it's got to be the speaker system in this weird dome IMAX.
Yeah.
And then somebody else would be like, what do you mean? I'm like, hold on, I understood that guy. And like, and like I walked out of it was like a 15-minute. It was just that
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
opening,
Yeah.
the plane thing.
heist.
Yeah. And like I walked out of it and I was like, huh, I don't know what Bane said in there. And I talked to like 2 or 3 other people that were there and they were like, I have no clue. And so then I saw the articles of like Christopher Nolan revamping Bane's audio because no one understood what he said in the previews.
Yeah.
And then I got to the actual movie. I was like, I still can't understand this guy. This
Also,
is better?
That's not a great film either.
No,
It's
it's definitely the
okay.
weakest of the 3 Batman
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah, and all 3 are honestly pretty weak, but
oh, I love the Dark
But
Knight.
No.
But at the time,
Dark Knight is a very entertaining film.
Mhm.
I don't think it is very structurally sound at all.
Okay.
that's a valid complaint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll review
But
those
I
at some
love
point.
Dark Knight. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's a great film.
I like it, yeah.
But the plot is hilarious.
yeah, it's a bit,
It's all over the place.
it kind of bends over
Yeah.
backwards on
Yeah.
itself a couple times. I still like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. If you liked what you heard, you can check us out on spoilersintendedpodcast.com. We got links to all of our previous
like
episodes.
Patreon.
Also,
if you want to support us,
Yeah.
man, get in the Patreon. For $1 a month, you get access to all of our bonus episodes. And they're like a different format. They're not like a normal review. We do like
Tier
Star
lists of
Wars tier
things.
list, fast food tier list. We have like starter anime recommendations.
Yep.
We got all sorts of stuff over there.
I mean, we love and appreciate all of our current patrons, and we would absolutely love to add you to their number.
Yeah.
But if $1 a month is, a bit too big of an ask, we would also love a review out there on whatever podcast provider you prefer. Or, interact with us on social media, comment, share, like.
Tell your cat, your
Spread
animal,
the
maybe
word.
your horse.
Spread
I
the
don't know.
word.
Maybe
Oh,
you live
put
on
a horse.
farm.
Oh,
We're going to get
Yeah.
a big mammal in here.
Okay, I like it. Yeah. No cows, though. Just
No.
horses.
Yeah, no, just horses.
Cows are right out.
Yeah, right out. Unless it's like I don't know.
No, right out.
Okay, yeah, you're right. We can't start.
Get outta
A
here.
Charolais cow might appreciate it more than others, but you know what? Cows are right out.
Yep.
All right, well, until next time, I'm Ryan.
True.
And I'm Steven.
And every spoiler was intended. Two clenched fists for this one.
Jesus.
Your last memory before you kill yourself, Green Lantern. Woof.